When his mother looked me up and down at dinner and whispered ghetto under her breath, I felt my world crumble. But my billionaire fiancé heard every word. What he did next shocked everyone, including me. He canceled our hometown wedding and booked the Palace of Versailles instead. Before we dive into this incredible story of love, respect, and standing up for what's right, hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and subscribe because I share real stories about overcoming prejudice and finding your worth. You know, sometimes life puts you exactly where you need to be, even when you don't realize it. That's what happened to me on that rainy Tuesday morning when I decided to volunteer at the downtown food bank. I'd been going through a rough patch, lost my job, felt like I was drowning in bills, and my mama always taught me that when you're struggling, the best thing you can do is help someone who's struggling more. I walked into that community center, expecting to serve meals and maybe feel a little better about myself. What I didn't expect was to meet him. There he was, this tall, handsome man, with the most genuine smile I'd ever seen, rolling up his sleeves and asking Mrs. Johnson, the coordinator, where he could help. He wasn't there for a photo op or to make himself look good. He was genuinely there to work. For 3 months, we worked side by side every Tuesday and Saturday. He'd show up in jeans and old sneakers, ready to get his hands dirty. We'd pack food boxes, serve hot meals, and talk to families who were going through hard times. During our breaks, we'd sit on those plastic chairs and talk about everything: our dreams, our fears, what we wanted from life. He never once mentioned money or status. He just talked about wanting to make a difference. I started looking forward to those volunteer days more than anything else in my week. There was something special about him, something that made me feel seen and valued. He'd remember little things I mentioned, bring me my favorite coffee, and always made sure I got home safely after the evening shifts. I thought he was just a regular guy with a big heart, maybe worked in an office somewhere. Then one evening, everything changed. We'd just finished cleaning up after serving dinner to about 100 families, and I was walking to the bus stop like I always did. That's when I saw the black Mercedes pull up, and a man in a suit got out. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "your car is ready." I stopped in my tracks. My heart was beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. This man I'd been falling for, this humble, kind person who served meals beside me, was being picked up by a driver. When he saw the look on my face, he walked over slowly. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, and his voice was so gentle, so worried. That night, sitting in a quiet diner, he told me everything. His family owned one of the biggest tech companies in the country. He was worth more money than I could ever imagine. But here's the thing that made me fall even harder. He was scared I'd treat him differently. He'd been hurt before by people who only wanted his money. I looked at this man who could buy anything he wanted, and all I saw was the same person who'd spent months making sure elderly Mrs. Williams got extra helpings of food, who'd played chess with homeless teenagers, who'd held my hand when I cried about my struggles. Money didn't change who he was to me. If anything, it made me respect him more. He could have been anywhere, doing anything, but he chose to be there, serving others. Our relationship deepened after that. He took me to nice places, sure, but our best times were still at the food bank, or walking through the park, or sitting on my tiny apartment balcony, talking until sunrise. When he proposed 6 months later, it wasn't at some fancy restaurant or exotic location. It was at the animal shelter, where we'd started volunteering together on weekends. He got down on one knee right there between the dog kennels, with all those rescued animals as witnesses, and asked me to be his wife. I said yes without hesitation. This man loved me for who I was, supported my dreams, and treated me like the most precious thing in his world. We started planning our wedding right away. I wanted something simple and meaningful, so we decided to have it at my neighborhood community center, the same place where we'd met. My family was so excited, my friends were over the moon, and everything felt perfect. Then came the dinner invitation. His parents wanted to meet me properly, he said. I spent weeks preparing. I bought a new dress, practiced my manners, researched his family's business so I could make conversation. I was nervous, but excited. These were going to be my in-laws, the grandparents of my future children. I wanted them to love me as much as their son did. The house was like something out of a magazine. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than most people's houses. His mother, Patricia, greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. His father, Robert, shook my hand like he was handling something distasteful. His sister barely acknowledged me, and his brother spent the entire evening on his phone. Dinner was tense from the start. They asked me questions that felt more like an interrogation. Where did I grow up? What did my parents do? Where did I go to school? Each answer seemed to disappoint them more. When I mentioned that my mama worked as a nurse and my daddy drove trucks, I saw Patricia exchange a look with Robert. When I talked about my state school education, his sister actually rolled her eyes. But I kept trying. I complimented the food, asked about their business, shared stories about the volunteer work their son and I did together. Nothing worked. They looked at me like I was some kind of charity case their son had picked up. The worst moment came during dessert. I'd excused myself to use the bathroom, and when I was walking back, I heard Patricia talking to Robert in the hallway. She thought I was out of earshot, but her voice carried. "I don't understand what he sees in her," she said. "She's so ghetto. Did you hear how she talks? And that dress, clearly from some discount store. She's going to embarrass this family." Those words hit me like a physical blow. Ghetto. I stood there frozen, feeling like I couldn't breathe. All my life, I'd worked hard to make something of myself. I'd put myself through college, worked multiple jobs, volunteered in my community, treated everyone with respect and kindness. But to her, none of that mattered. All she saw was where I came from, and she'd decided that made me less than. I walked back to that dining room with tears in my eyes, trying to hold my head high, but my fiancé, let's call him Michael, took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. He kept asking if I was okay, but I couldn't bring myself to repeat what I'd heard. Not in front of his family, not when they were already looking at me like I didn't belong. The ride home was quiet at first. Michael kept glancing at me, knowing something had happened, but not sure what. Finally, I broke down and told him everything. I watched his face change from confusion to anger, to something I'd never seen before, pure rage. He pulled the car over and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white. "She said what?" His voice was barely a whisper, but I could feel the fury underneath it. I repeated his mother's words, and he closed his eyes like he was in physical pain. "Baby, I am so sorry. I am so sorry you had to hear that." When we got back to my apartment, Michael was quiet for a long time. He sat on my couch, head in his hands, and I could see him struggling with something. Finally, he looked up at me with eyes full of determination. "They don't deserve you," he said. "They don't deserve to be at our wedding, to celebrate our love, to be part of our happiness." I tried to tell him that it was okay, that we could work through it, but he shook his head. "No, it's not okay. What she said, how they treated you, that's not okay. And I won't let you start our marriage feeling like you have to prove yourself to people who will never appreciate how amazing you are." The next morning, Michael made some calls. First to his family, telling them exactly what he thought of their behavior. Then to our wedding planner, canceling everything we'd arranged. I panicked at first. What were we going to do? We'd sent invitations, made deposits, planned our whole day. That's when he told me his new plan, and I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. He'd contacted a wedding planner in Paris. Not just any wedding planner, the woman who planned weddings for royalty. And not just any venue, the Palace of Versailles, the same palace where Marie Antoinette lived, where kings and queens held their celebrations. "But Michael," I said, "that must cost." "I don't care what it costs," he interrupted. "You deserve to feel like a queen on your wedding day. You deserve to be celebrated in the most beautiful place in the world, surrounded by people who love and respect you. My family can come if they want, but they'll be guests at your celebration, in a place so magnificent that even they can't pretend to look down on you." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Michael flew my entire family to Paris, first class. My mama, who'd never been on a plane before, cried when she saw her seat. My daddy, who always acted tough, got emotional when he realized his little girl was getting married in an actual palace. My cousins, my aunts, my childhood friends, everyone who'd loved and supported me was going to be there. Meanwhile, his family was in shock. Patricia called him dozens of times, demanding to know what he thought he was doing. His father threatened to cut him off financially, not knowing that Michael had his own money, his own companies. His siblings tried to guilt him, saying he was tearing the family apart. But Michael stood firm. The only person tearing this family apart, he told them, is the woman who called the love of my life Ghetto. 3 days before the wedding, we flew to Paris. I'd never seen anything so beautiful in my life. The palace was like something from a fairy tale, with golden gates and gardens that seemed to go on forever. Our wedding planner, Marie Claire, treated me like absolute royalty. She had a team of people helping me with everything. My dress fitting, my hair, my makeup, everything was perfect. The morning of our wedding, I woke up in a suite that overlooked the palace gardens. My mama was there, crying happy tears as she helped me into my dress. "Baby girl," she said, "I always knew you were special. But seeing you here, in this place, marrying a man who loves you enough to move mountains for you, this is your fairy tale come true." His family did come to the wedding. They flew in the day before, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Despite their wealth, I could see Patricia's face when she walked into the palace, realizing that her son had created something more magnificent than anything she could have imagined. They sat in the back during the ceremony, looking small and humbled, but I barely noticed them. As I walked down that aisle in the Hall of Mirrors, with the most beautiful flowers I'd ever seen lining my path, all I could see was Michael. He was crying. This strong, successful man was crying as he watched me walk toward him. Behind him, I could see my family and friends, all dressed in their finest, all glowing with pride and joy. The ceremony itself was like a dream. We exchanged vows in English and French, with a string quartet playing in the background. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and Michael kissed me, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Not because of the money or the palace or the luxury, but because I was marrying a man who'd proven he would always stand up for me, always protect me, always make sure I felt valued and loved. The reception was magical. We danced in the same ballroom where French royalty once celebrated. My uncle gave a toast that made everyone cry, talking about how proud he was to see his niece treated like the queen she'd always been in our family's eyes. Michael's business partners and friends, who'd flown in from around the world, kept telling me how happy they were to finally meet the woman who'd captured his heart. Even some of his family members came up to me during the reception. His sister apologized quietly, saying she'd never seen her brother so happy. His brother admitted that he'd been wrong about me, that he could see why Michael loved me so much. But Patricia, she kept her distance most of the evening. It wasn't until the very end of the night that she approached me. I was sitting alone for a moment, watching Michael dance with my mama, both of them laughing and spinning around the dance floor. Patricia sat down beside me, and for the first time all evening, she looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "What I said that night, it was wrong. It was cruel and ignorant, and I'm ashamed of myself." She paused, watching her son with my mother. "I can see how much he loves you, and I can see the kind of woman you are, the way your family talks about you, the way you've handled all of this with such grace. I was wrong about you." I looked at this woman who'd hurt me so deeply, and I felt something I didn't expect: pity. She'd almost missed out on knowing me, on being part of our happiness, because of her prejudice. "Thank you for saying that," I told her. "I hope we can start over." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'd like that very much." Looking back now, 3 years later, I realized that awful dinner was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Not because I enjoyed being hurt or humiliated, but because it showed me exactly who Michael was: It proved that he didn't just love me when it was easy. He loved me enough to fight for me, to defend me, to move heaven and earth to make sure I felt valued. Our marriage is stronger because of what we went through. We learned early that we're a team, that we'll always have each other's backs, no matter what. His relationship with his family improved too. Gradually, they learned to respect me. And more importantly, they learned that their son was serious about putting our relationship first. We still volunteer together every week. We've started our own foundation, helping families in need and supporting community centers like the one where we met. Michael always says that the best investment he ever made wasn't in any company. It was in that food bank, because that's where he found me. As for our wedding, people still talk about it. Not because it was expensive or extravagant, but because it was a celebration of real love. Love that stands up to prejudice. Love that protects and defends. Love that says, you deserve the very best. And then make sure you get it. I learned something important through all of this. Your worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. It doesn't matter if someone thinks you're ghetto, or not good enough, or from the wrong background. What matters is how you see yourself. And finding people who see your true value. Michael saw me for who I really was from day one, not where I came from or what I had, but who I was in my heart. And when someone shows you that kind of love, that kind of respect, that kind of partnership, hold on to it, because that's the kind of love that moves weddings to Paris, that stands up to family pressure, that builds a foundation strong enough to last a lifetime. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that they deserve better. Drop a comment telling me about a time someone stood up for you, or when you had to stand up for yourself. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about love, growth, and never settling for less than you deserve. Remember, you are worthy of respect, always.